Welcome to Map It Marketing for small business owners who want to become more confident and capable in their marketing. I'm Rachel Klaver and I'm a small business owner just like you. I've learnt that there are so many different things that we are supposed to do all the time. And trying to work it all out is, quite frankly, often very confusing. In this podcast, we're going to explore what those things are and whether you need to pay attention to them. Ready? Let's get started. If there's one platform that I have totally undervalued over the years, it's totally Pinterest. It's often a completely undervalued part of small business digital marketing plans, but with over 450 million monthly users, 60% of them being women, it's the perfect platform to use to build presence, help people find you, and create links back to your website. It's not like other social media platforms where you need to be on there every day and you can schedule in things. So it's a great one to use as part of your marketing machine. Tracey Hancock wanted to use Pinterest to do just that. She's a coach who developed the Living Well program that helps her clients get clarity around how they want to live and then take steps they need to do that. Along with one-to-one work, Tracey offers an online learning option to help her clients develop and learn. She's based in Te Awamutu in New Zealand, but Tracey's been able to grow her customer base across New Zealand and Australia using a range of marketing techniques, including Pinterest. Her use of Pinterest was so successful it became overwhelming, and Tracey learned what she needed to do to maintain a regular stream of traffic without burning herself out. So this episode, she has generally shared some of her mistakes that she made when setting up her Pinterest page, what she has learned along the way, and how she's running it now. If Pinterest is on your list of platforms that you're going to go deeper this year in 2022, or you want to know if it could work for you at all, this episode will help you. Let's get talking to Tracey. Hello and welcome to episode 38 of Map It Marketing. This is one of our first shows of the new year, and I'm so excited to have Tracey Hancock on this with us today. I've known Tracey for ages. I've watched her business grow. She's got a beautiful, gentle, but quite challenging energy. She won't let you slide. And she is going to be sharing with us a little bit about something. I've asked her to talk about her experience with Pinterest because we're focusing on that in the next few weeks. She's also, however, that's not what she does. She's a business owner in her own right. And so what I thought we'd do is allow Tracey to introduce herself and a little bit of what she does so you can see whether it's something that you feel you can relate to as you go across, which I'm sure you will. So Tracey, thank you so much for being on the show. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. Okay, so what I've found throughout my lifetime is a lot of people go through life feeling the weight of expectations and all those shoulds and, you've got to be like this and you've got to do that. And not surprisingly, that's what I felt going through life. And it's just no way to live. Like you just feel out of sorts and just like, eek, something's wrong, something's missing. So what I do is I help people reconnect with who they are, to really understand, who they are, what they value, how they want to live, and of course, provide the tools to help them make that real. Because it's one thing to go through that discovery, and then you go, then what? Well, here you go. Here are some tools to help you make that your reality. Because for me, that's when life becomes more fulfilling and you amplify your impact and your contribution. So it's all about being your real self and living life fully.
I love that because I think one of the things that I was actually interviewed on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I talked about that. There was the realization that something had to shift and change and I was out of alignment. But you think that that's going to fix everything, but there's actually quite a painful process you have to go as you unshed the stuff that's been holding you back and the fear often of jumping into what you're going to do next.
100%. And because, a lot of people go searching outside of themselves to figure this stuff out. But as you just said, it's like the shedding. It's the shedding of all those layers that we've used to protect ourselves. It's the, societal pressures. It's the things that we've heard from a very young age. So a real shedding process. And, that is not always pretty, but I think you'd probably agree, well worth it when you come out the other side and you go.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think for me, one of the people, and I know you would have this too, people often will ask, how do you become confident and how do you do this? It really is just stepping back into yourself often, but you don't know what that self is because there's been so much other stuff happen to stop that happening. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And so for me, that confidence, we lose confidence, we lose self-confidence because we don't stand strongly in our truth. We haven't had that experience of going, you know what, this is me. I know myself. I accept myself. I approve of myself. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to be. And when we know that, we are just so much more naturally confident. Yeah.
I was thinking, we're going to talk about Pinterest in a minute, but I was thinking about this yesterday because even though this is going to be in January, we're recording this while I'm still in lockdown in Auckland. You're liberated because you're in the Waikato, but I'm still in lockdown. And I was actually thinking, so I bought these really cool, brightly colored overalls, which I'm going to use in video. And I was thinking about it and going, it's so weird because as a round person and a person that absorbs a lot of other people's feelings, lockdown's a really good time for me because I'm not around other people. I'm just with myself. I've got my family who all love and accept me. So I don't get any external influences. And I tend to find that I go deeper into that creative push because I'm only listening to my own voice and it makes it stronger, which was a nice byproduct of a lockdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't this interesting? Because I know lockdown's not a great thing, but when you start to look at those benefits or the opportunities and the fact that you've taken them, you've recognized them and you've taken them and you've realized, gee, when I'm not getting all of that external stuff, yes, I'm stronger. So now when you come out of lockdown, it'll be interesting as you transition to go, how do I manage that? Because you could go from being in your beautiful bubble to all of a sudden going, oh my gosh.
I mean, I may get crushingly disappointed anyway because the item of clothing I bought were these brightly colored overalls. And Rod, for the listeners, that's my husband and my business partner, he has literally said the line he will not cross is when I start wearing overalls. But I could not resist them. I mean, they were just like so me. So I'm just, they probably won't ever come out for date night. They will be in videos. So it's awesome. Now, I wanted to get you on board here because we are talking about Pinterest. And I think for me, Pinterest I've got into it this year. I've got really into it. But I felt Pinterest was a bit of a dark art because it is quite related to search engine optimization or SEO, which is a thing that I'm like, I can do many things and I like maths, but when SEO is mentioned, there's this weird la, la, la thing that goes in my brain and I have like a block. And you are actually one of the reasons I started setting up my Pinterest again because you went into a phase of using Pinterest.
Oh my gosh. I am. And oh my God, I just want to dive in and talk about it, but maybe I should wait for your question because honestly, what an experience it's been using Pinterest. It's blowing my mind. And,
in a good way or a bad way?
Like in a good way on reflection at the time, because my Pinterest account exploded, like literally exploded in terms of views to the point where I ran away. Like I got up from my desk and I would just run away and I'd delete Pinterest so I couldn't look at it because it just freaked me out so much. Yeah. Because
it just such a good job. You freaked yourself out.
Yeah. And I know, right? I know, which makes no sense at all.
Also, but, like everyone else is like, damn you, Tracey. I mean, like, way to go. Like, you're so successful, you freak yourself out. We're just struggling to get a view on a pin.
Because I was watching the numbers going up and it got to like 180,000 views, like really consistently for a very lengthy period of time. And I was just like, oh my God, there's so many people looking at my stuff. Get off, quick, get off.
It was almost like an imposter syndrome thing where you sort of freaked out about it.
It was just the sheer numbers. And I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean? Like, are they going to have all these expectations of me? And oh my God, do they think like I'm really good at this? Honestly, the stories I told myself, I was really grateful that my training as a coach meant I did calm down, but that was my immediate reaction. But that didn't just happen. Like it did build up. And maybe like many, I started on Pinterest out of personal interest. And then started to read and hear people talking. When I say people, like marketing people that I was following, talking
like
about.
Jenna Kutcher, was that one?
Yeah, she was one. And they're going, yeah, get on Pinterest. It's the place to be. And I'm like, okay, they've said it. I've got to be there. And I was dabbling personally. And then I started to experiment and do some stuff and try some stuff. And the views kind of built quite quickly to around about 11,000 a month. And I thought, oh, that's amazing. I've made it. I'm so happy.
But then it just kept on growing. So in terms of your Pinterest, do you do it completely by yourself, or do you have a VA that helps with this? Like, because I think that's important. I have a VA I have two people who help me with my Pinterest. I have one person, I've got a pin templates and they do the pins, and I've got someone else who schedules them. Do you get extra help, or is it just you?
So at the moment, it's just me.
Yes.
I did have a period of time where I got some help because, look, one of the lessons I learned was marketing is not my full-time job. I am a life coach, but marketing and Pinterest in particular was taking over my life, and I actually knew nothing about it. I was just guessing. I'd read something and go, oh, okay, I'll just try that without a plan. And so I went, okay, Trace, like seriously, if you're staying on Pinterest, you need to learn some stuff. So I did some learning, and then I went, now, if I got a VA who didn't have to be a Pinterest expert, but just someone who could do some research, find out some best practice, help me with my scheduling tool, and like I doubled my learning in a shorter period of time. So I used a VA to up my skills, to learn about the analytics, to learn about how to write descriptions. I may go back to using a VA again, I think, because I can just see the huge potential in Pinterest.
I really like this because that's how I use my team quite often. Like, I have to know, as a marketer, I have to do our marketing, teach marketing, and everything changes all the time. There's no way I can keep on top of it. So I give different people in my team something and say, look, this is something that I know I need to get better at. Can you go learn about it? Mm-hmm. And then can you give me the summarized version of what I need to do, the key action points? And then if I can work it out from you, I can teach it. And I think that's a really wise way of using a VA. And also for me, I do find, do you schedule your pins? Like,
yes,
we'll talk about how it works, but do you use Tailwind or do you use Pinterest?
Yeah, I use Tailwind for scheduling because there are other features that then gives me access to, which are really useful. Yeah.
So let's strip it back right from the beginning. So when you started Pinterest, what were some things you learned, or especially after you got the training, what were some things you learned you had to do to set up your boards right or set up your account right?
So actually think about why I was on Pinterest. I mean, what was the purpose for a start?
It's quite an important question.
Yeah. Didn't really think about that to start with, kind of backtracked a bit and went, so why am I here?
How often do we, It's very common.
I know. And then just to think about, oh, Tracey, it's not actually about you, love. It's about your clients, your potential clients and customers. So that was a bit of a shift. Okay, you're not just there saving your own pretty pictures. Like, who are you there for? To provide information for, to attract. So actually think about who you're there for and what are they interested in? Like, what are they looking for when they're actually on Pinterest? So really stepping out of me and thinking about, the why and who I'm looking to connect with on Pinterest.
And what are most of your pins directing towards? Like, where do they go? Because for those who don't understand, a Pinterest pin is kind of like it's an image with a bit of text and it has a link. And when you click the image, often it will take you to a link somewhere. So where did you want them to go?
So I have two places that I direct them to primarily. One is to my Instagram account, and that's more so they can get a feel for my vibe. So I'm going, for more tips, for more ideas, go and check out on Instagram, because that's where I kind of show up and really show some of my personality. So that's kind of get to know me, get to know my vibe.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
I've been doing that with TikTok and Instagram, sharing from there, and those actually have been more popular than the other ones often because, I think too, with using video and being able to share a reel or something and being able to push back, people go, oh, I like that energy, and then they come back and check more out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great way to use content that you've already created.
It really is.
Oh my God,
because that's one place. And where do they go to? What's the other place that they go?
The other place would be something like a specific page on my website. So it depends on what I'm focusing on at that time. If I'm promoting a program, it'll be straight to that program page. If it's to sign up for my blogs, it'll be to that page. So what I've learned, but didn't do very well to start with, is be very specific and intentional about where you take them to. So yeah, either Instagram or a specific page on my website with a clear call to action. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think these are the things that are the bit that takes the time, is making sure that you've got a really good title that someone's going to be interested in looking at, a nice picture pin that has that title or information in it, a bit of a good summary, and then that link, and those with the call to action. And that can be like a bit of a head shift, because it is not always the same as if you're writing a Facebook post or an Instagram post. It is a different kettle of fish.
And that's such a good point, because I think people jump from maybe using Facebook or Instagram to Pinterest and think they can do things exactly the same, but it's quite different. And you made this point earlier. What I didn't realize to start with is how powerful Pinterest is from an SEO point of view. So it changed my entire approach then when I went, right.
Yeah, this is the thing that I feel that as a marketer, because obviously I'm not a digital marketer. I do digital, but it's not everything I do. And one of the things I feel that I have fallen into getting wrong in the past, because everyone wants to talk about social media. And when they talk about social media, they're talking about Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. But the shelf life of YouTube or Pinterest is way beyond any of those other things, because on Pinterest, a good pin will have it's there forever, but it lasts for about 3 months.
Yeah.
Whereas the shelf life on a post is 4 to 6 hours.
And like realizing that, it's like mind blowing. And this is the kind of stuff that I didn't know when I started. And you kind of like fall into it. And because my Pinterest account kind of exploded so much, I had people from Pinterest like reaching out and offering me free strategy sessions.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know, it was so cool. So I'm like on these sessions with a wonderful person based in Australia, taking me through some strategy stuff and, sharing resources and telling me about, how it works and in more detail and stuff I didn't know. And she'd looked at some of my stuff and I'm like, oh, is this what happens when you're like...
when you're famous, when you're Pinterest famous?
I know.
I love that. That's so cool. So one of the things I made a mistake with, and I think you got right, is I made my board titles too complicated. Because they need to be quite short and really easy, like SEO, really, aren't they? Like that whole like keyword thing.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Make it super easy and look at what people are searching for as well, and use those keywords. And so you'll see on my boards, I have a mix of boards where I only put my own content, but there'll be boards that I pin other people's content to, but it's similar to mine. So it's kind of reinforcing that kind of, you're coming to my boards and this is the kind of feel you're going to get. And, I'm sharing some broader love than just my content alone. So
how many hours would you put into Pinterest, either a week or a month?
So I've got that fairly finely tuned now.
I thought you might.
And it's probably only about an hour a month.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, because I know the drill. I know what I do. So I know when I create my content for Instagram, then I just convert that to content for Pinterest. When I'm creating a blog, you can get about 12 pins out of a blog. And so you just stack them up like that. And I think having a process is key. But starting with something, and I'm sure you would say this as well, with anything you're doing, start with something that's realistic and then build up. So I was at one point doing 6 pins a day.
It's a bit tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, a bit tricky.
I mean, Pinterest is good because with Tailwind, which is this app, and it is a paid app. And I would say if you're going to use Pinterest, it is so well worth it. Like you can schedule with Canva, you can schedule in Pinterest, but Tailwind just knocks it out of the park. Would you agree too?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But my thing that I had done wrong is I also did some training. I did some training with Jenna Kutcher because it was a headspace for me. And I got sucked in to making everything look Jenna Kutchery. So like she has like beautiful earth tones and stuff like that. And I was like, I've got to do that. And before that I'd been doing brights and getting quite a lot of hits, but I got this kind of doubt thing around it. And so, and nothing was working. And I actually paid someone recently to overhaul my Pinterest and go, what's going wrong? And she immediately went back to Brights. And I was like, oh, I can do those? And she's like, yeah, that's the brand. And it was just like, it's such a dumb thing because I'm a marketer. I know that thing. But it was just, it's so easy to get that kind of doubting space around what you do. Because one of your brand colors is purple. So purple would feature a lot in your pins.
Yeah, it does. And interesting, I went through a phase where I watered down the purple.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you why I did it, because across social media, there's been such a trend with those natural earthy tones. Exactly. Such a trend. And I was struggling to find a role model who was using the brighter colours. And in the end, I just went, I just can't do it because I didn't like looking at my own stuff.
I didn't like it either. I just felt like, oh, this is not me. But I was like, but this is what everyone wants. But it's not. My people don't want that. Your people don't want a watered down version of Tracey. They want like the full noise Tracey.
Mm-hmm. So 100% knowing your brand colours, knowing your fonts, knowing your styles, knowing what sort of images and what you want to portray. Like the more you can get clarity about those things, makes it so much easier. Tailwind, ideal. You're scheduling into Tailwind. You can use the smart loops and the other features in there. And amazing analytics, because when you look at your analytics, it's quite useful. Another thing I didn't do to start with.
Yeah, I do. I do love the analytics. So one of the questions I'm going to ask you is, on your pins, do you use your face quite a bit?
Sometimes,
but not all the time.
Not all the time. Some of them are just text. Some of the images that reflect the vibe and the kind of people that I'm looking to attract as well. So I don't want it to be all about me, because I'd noticed when I was going on people's Pinterest, when the photos were all of them, I was actually getting a bit
overwhelmed,
really?
A bit blah.
Yeah. And just like, dude, what about me? Where's the space for me? So I like to use some images that invite people in to go, oh, I can see myself in that.
I like that. I really like that. So you use it to drive traffic to your website, and in relation to that, is your business, because we haven't caught up for ages, are you still focused mainly on New Zealand and Australia, or New Zealand and or Australia, or are you worldwide? Are you working with people worldwide?
So my focus is very much on New Zealand, Australia, but I'm very aware that with an online program, I can work with people anywhere. And so for me, Pinterest has been a great way to tap into the American market. So about half of my Pinterest audience are from America.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then the UK and Canada are next as well. So it's giving me reach into those countries. And what I'm seeing then is I have a free Facebook community where I'm getting people from those countries coming into that community.
It's also interesting.
So while they might not buy immediately, they're kind of coming into my orbit. Yeah. And then we're just building that relationship. So I'm seeing a more international flavor coming through in my group and in my newsletter signups as well. So, from a future-proofing growth development point of view, Pinterest has been great for that. For people who are just Australia, New Zealand focused, Pinterest has got huge growth in this region, huge growth. And it's well worth tapping into, particularly when you take into account people are on Pinterest, not just to be scrolling. They are ready. They're ready for information to buy, whatever it is they're looking for. They're ready to take some action. So it's a great platform.
But also, I think one of the things with Pinterest, which I really like, is that when you're doing a search, because Pinterest is so highly indexed, especially if you're an image person, the Pinterest images will come up. So it does give you that opportunity too to really help see that. Have you used Pinterest advertising?
I have. Now, not consistently.
Me neither.
One of the and it was phenomenal and so easy. It was I found it quite and cheap. The return on investment, by far the best paid advertising I've done. I'm not currently, and that's because I'm just redeveloping a program, and I just want to use the advertising a smart way. But cheap, great return on investment, and easy to set up as well.
Yeah, and one of the things because we're talking about that sort of New Zealand, Australia thing, one of the things I like about the Pinterest advertising is that is where you can go, I only want people in New Zealand or Australia or wherever it is, and you can just focus on that group, and that's the only place that gets your pins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is fantastic.
It is so
it
good.
is cheap. It is the cheapest digital advertising out there, which is fantastic. And so for people so you've had lots of traffic. Have you got clients that have come from Pinterest, or you're not sure?
So I definitely know that I've had people coming into my private group and onto my newsletter list. And so I'm now in that kind of phase of going, right, I need to be more specific and targeted around actually the purchasing, because this would be, I guess, one of the biggest lessons I learned from Pinterest. And, people like you can probably talk to you blue in the face, and some of the things hadn't landed for me. But Pinterest helped me see the importance of messaging, the targeting, the call to action. I was like, I really get it now. I really get it.
That's awesome, because it's interesting, because for some people that's video or Instagram or whatever. And I do think, like, I know I went through this last year because I realized that my leads had dropped off LinkedIn, but it's because I'd stopped putting a call to action at the end of my comments. And I have to literally write down, I have a piece of paper that says, remember the call to action, because it's so hard to remember. But that is key across all the platforms, isn't it, really?
It sure is. And for me, I think because my Pinterest just it literally exploded. And then I went, I didn't really have them going anywhere. I didn't have a call to action. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I know. And I finally got it. Like, I finally understood all the pieces of the picture and how it actually worked. And I went, that would have been good to have realized beforehand, but good that I know now.
I love it. So if you wrote a blog, for example, and you wanted to use Pinterest, how many pins would you create for that blog?
So anywhere between 10 to 12, sometimes less, depends on what's in the blog. And I would do a variety. It might be a quote, or it might be like a what they call it, infographic, or
they take time. They're worth doing, but they take time.
And so I don't do those so often for that very reason. I haven't gotten to the swing of that yet. But I try and take the elements of the blog and do something different. So you don't just get the same pin, because I've seen people do that, like pretty much the same, just swap a photo. And I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm ripping people off then. So
I have to admit, I do that a little bit. I have templates because it just makes it easier. I love that you don't do that, and it's great. I think maybe what I need to do is do more templates. Like my carousels, I've got like 80 templated images that are there. I should just do that for Pinterest. So I've got a different layout.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've done. I've got different collections of layouts, and I make sure I'm sort of mixing them up. So from one blog, I wouldn't just do 12 pins with a picture in a standard headline. I'll do quotes, or a picture of me, a picture of a group, a picture of a sunrise, whatever, just to really mix them up and give them a different look. Yeah,
it was just, you saw me go, I think you saw me my face because we're doing this my video go serious. There was this little moment where I was like, I wish my business could use sunrises as part of our marketing.
But they so could. It'd be like, imagine being like Tracey and the sun rising and you're going, I finally get it. The sun has dawned.
I know, it so fits your sort of business. I was like, I can't justify the sunrises very often. I'd like to use sunrises. It's bad enough using dogs. I use my dogs. I know if I use dogs in a picture that the views are going to go up. So, I'll use those. So, okay. So if people were wanting to add Pinterest to their plan and start using it, what recommendations would you say to get started? Like, what would you suggest they do?
Okay. So definitely understand why. Like, why? Is it just because somebody else said you should be there? It's just like, okay, well, tell me why I should be there. Like, help me understand that. Like, why? Because you could throw an awful lot of time, effort, and energy at it and for nothing. So why?
What's the point?
Yeah. So why are you going there? What are you hoping to gain from that? From being on Pinterest, what's the leading to? Because if it's not leading to anything, then maybe not. So definitely why. I definitely do some learning.
I think that's really important with Pinterest. I think you can kind of learn with like Instagram and Facebook, just by being around everybody else, you can pick up, and it can be a bit easier. Pinterest, I do think, is one that you should go and get a bit of learning about.
100%. Yeah. Definitely look at, the design of the pins. Like, really think about getting some templates. That'll make it so much easier.
Much easier.
Much easier. And I write, just looking around to see if I've got some handy, like I just write myself a little checklist of, what's in my pin caption, much like you said, that prompt to write the call to action, like, so what's going in here? What's this about? So that I'm making it as easy as possible for myself.
Yeah, I will admit that I have cheated a little bit, because I was writing all my captions myself, and then I was like, I have to give this to someone else, and I'm a bit of a control freak, so I don't want to give it to someone else to write everything. But what I'm now doing is I have created a really SEO rich caption that can be used across whatever. So for my podcast, I do 10 pins a week for my podcast, so you'll be on there, Tracey. 10 pins a week for my podcast, and I give my VA about 7 or 8 different titles, 10 designs, and then this little blurb and the link. And then she can switch around the titles and things to kind of fit. And those are the ones I take the time to do, because they have to be SEO rich and what people would be searching for, because it's not necessarily the name of the podcast. It has to be something like how to stop getting overwhelmed with Pinterest. Like, that might be the thing. That might not be the title of this podcast, but that would be a pin title that I could use. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, 100%. And it's okay to use the same text.
Yes, that's what I realised.
I know. And again, I think, because I was watching, people who've got, like, I know they've got big teams working on this sort of stuff. And I was watching them going, they keep repeating the same text.
That's what I realised. And I was like, you've got a big team and you're still doing that. Maybe I can do it too.
Yeah, I know. Because again, to start with, because I didn't do the learning, I was busy writing everything from scratch. It was all original, 6 pins a day, 7 days a week. I tell you, it was a big job.
You could have been the Pinterest superstar of the world. People would have come and done conferences and people were like, I just want to hear the Queen. And then you'll be like, okay, so I'm spending 7 hours a day on this. It's amazing.
And you know what? I often think, like, if I was coming back in another life, would I be a life coach or would I do like Pinterest? And seriously, I got to a point where I was going, maybe I'll specialize in Pinterest.
I've actually got a client who's like that. She has an amazingly highly reputable and successful retail store. And I often say to her, honestly, if you came back again, your life would be a Canva designer, because that is her place of joy. That is the thing. She would give up almost everything just to do that. It's the only thing she wants to do. So I do think that is, and I think that's one of the nicest things about being a business owner, is that we can find an element of because lots of marketing is awful, like it's boring or it's repetitive. But when you find like a little hub of something that you love, it's a beautiful thing.
It brings me so much joy. Like, honestly, getting onto my phone and looking at my Pinterest, I'm like, and if something looks out of shape, and I don't know if that this is good form, so please no one quote me for this, but if something really looks out of shape, I delete it. Now, I don't delete often, but I'm like, no, that's messing my look.
Okay, I don't do that. I think it is bad form, but I love that you do it. Now, can I ask a question before we talk about you and how people could work with you? Because this has been amazing. Idea pins, are you using these?
No, I haven't. Like, I've seen them there. And I've gone to delve into it, but I've reminded myself of my learnings. Do some learning first. Don't just jump in and start doing. So I do want to do some learning on those idea pins. Yeah. Have you?
You do reels, don't you?
I do reels inconsistently.
So I'm going to just give you something you can do that won't really hurt you, is you can download those reels and just post them as an idea pin, and I've had like 500,000 of views, like 500, not 500,000, 500 or thousands of views on a reel that I had sometimes had less views on my Instagram if I had a bad day on Instagram, but those seem to work really well. And they're not the right way to use an idea pin, because an idea pin is like a recipe or a thing, but they do work really well on there, and they do seem to increase that reach. So that might be a good start, just to have a play before you do your learning. But yeah, I think idea pins is where they're headed, but they seem like they've got a bit more admin in them, which is why I don't do too much with them.
It's interesting being a business owner with all these tools at our disposal. And so sometimes I can find myself like a deer in headlights.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my God, look at all these tools. And now I've kind of got this point where I go, stop.
Yeah, it's good.
I allocate myself some playtime.
Yes,
I'll go, you've got 30 minutes of playtime. You go for your life, girl. You go. And then other times I go.
That's so important. Like I have what I call shiny object syndrome playtime, and I have an allocated time once a week. And so if something comes, because people ask me about things all the time, and I find something, I make a list and I go, okay, this week I'm looking at this thing. And often I discard it. And so I've had that little play and then go, this isn't the right thing for me. Sometimes I fall in love with it and I change all our systems and then we use it for a week and I go, that was a bad mistake. I should have played with it a bit longer. I told people about this really awesome editing tool a few weeks ago. We changed over to it and then we tried to use it as a proper live test with my team and they all got frustrated and I went, that was a bad move. We'll go back to the old way. But I do think it's important to play, because I actually, we're running a bit late, but I had a coaching session with a client and, I'm saying, well, these are some things we have to really focus on. And I said, but your top priority is actually you need to start giving yourself time every week to think about how you're going to do this, because if you fill your entire time with, and we've talked about this before on LinkedIn and things, if you're doing just your work all the time, you have no time to sit and reflect and play.
Mm-hmm. And the play is so important. And I think sometimes we get afraid to play. So a lot of what I learned early on in Pinterest, I was playing. And yes, I realized I needed to supplement that with some learning, but I don't want to lose my curiosity and go, oh, I know what that might do. I'm going to have a go at that. Oh, I like the look of that. I'm going to find out some more. I'm going to pay someone to help me, or I'm going to do a course, or actually, that's not for now. But the importance of playing and not giving ourselves a hard time. So how I said when my account started to explode and I ran away, part of me coming back and re-engaging was, Trace, be curious and be kind. Just re-engage. Let's have a bit of a play. Let's see what's going on. Let's understand why it exploded. Let's look at what was going on and what led to that happening. And I just used that play philosophy, which really helped take the scariness out of it for me.
I think it's so important. I did that with Reels this year. I did a whole lot of stuff the way everyone else did it. Then I went, actually, I want to do this way. And I played for 90 days solid, did a reel every day. And I learned some stuff, but I still wasn't ready. So I took a break and I went and got some training from a few other people that I'd seen their stuff. So I went and asked some questions and got some help and bought a course and things like that. And then, but I kind of just kept a paddled while I was doing that. And I've come back and I feel like I have found my thing. I have found the way I did it. But I couldn't have done that by jumping straight into a course, because I would have just taken exactly what they had and replicated, whereas now I've got my way of doing it, which I think is really important.
And you would be the first to say, you've got to be yourself. Sure, learn from these people, but you've got to be yourself. We can't be natural, earthy toned people if we naturally want a bit of colour and we want a bit of energy and we want a bit of craziness.
Exactly.
I tell you what really bores me, on any platform, when I see the same thing showing up in the same way, the same colours, the same music, and I'm like, dude, where's your personality gone?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the thing that I've been really reminded of. I think we have to, if you've got something in you and you've got a way of doing it and it's different to everyone else, don't ignore that, because that difference is the thing that makes everyone else notice you out of a crowd of millions.
Because we can use the fundamentals. If we, talking about Pinterest, the SEO, the way you do your captions, we can use that structure, but we don't have to be hamstrung by somebody else's style. We use the structure and then we infuse it with our goodness.
I love that.
That's the magic.
Because I'm so into this, because structure is what all creatives need. We need the boundary of structure, and then you fight against the structure, and that's where the magic happens. You tease on the barriers of it. So that's just okay. So how do people work with you if they go, gosh, this person not only knows about Pinterest and may need to do some Pinterest stuff for her life, but my gosh, I love her energy. Where do they find you? How would they work with you?
So the best place to find me would be to go to my website, traceyhancock.com. And there are 3 ways that they could work with me. I have a free community, which is it's a beautiful space to jump in get a bit more of a feel for my vibe, my philosophy, but also join a group of people who are committed to living life fully. It's a great place to be. And we do some cool stuff during the month, including a live session. So that's one way, and it's free. Another way is we can do personal coaching. So some coaches will offer standard programs. I have a few options, and we mix and match depending on where you're at, where you want to be, how you like to work. And I like to tailor these things. I'm pulling faces because
No, I'm not saying. Someone asked me, what do you cover in the coaching program? I said, well, everyone's different. Like the marketing, it's like I could imagine if I was doing coaching with you, and I said to you, right, the first session's Pinterest, and you're like, lady, my Pinterest is getting 4 times the views of yours a month. I don't need to hear about Pinterest this month. Like, that would not fit, right? So, like, I love that. I think you can be structured, but have a lot of fluidity within that structure.
Yeah, because there's an absolute beautiful structure behind that. Yes. How we play that out, we want to figure that out together, because you best. I've got skills in planning and mindset coaching. We combine those and then we create the magic. So personal coaching online. So wherever you are, we can work together.
Excellent.
And the third option is I have an online course called Life by Design. And this takes you through a similar process to what we do in personal coaching, but of course you can do it at your own pace, your own time, and you've got access to those resources for the lifetime of the program. So you can just dip in and out when you need. And it's a fabulous mix of planning, mindset, practical, soulful, just bundle of goodness.
Love it. Tracey, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. I have I'm going with all the happies. Now, for those listeners here, first of all, thank you. I'm sure you have loved listening to Tracey, and we're going to do, as we normally do after the podcast, give you some really practical, relevant steps in relation to this. And next week, I have a podcast strategist who all she does is set up people's Pinterest and do those things, who will take us in a little bit in a slightly different direction to complement this as well. So I'm super excited about that. But Tracey, thank you so much for being part of today.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I love that we get to talk about this and share, I guess, from a I want to say lay persons, but just someone who yes, like so many, we just want to give
real
them
life.
A go. Yeah,
it's awesome.
Real
Thank
life.
you so much.
Thank you.
Doesn't Tracey have beautiful energy? We're going to go through a few of the things that she did and what you can do for your Pinterest in just a moment. But 3 quick things. 1, if you love this episode, I'd love it if you rated and reviewed it so other people would know that this is a good podcast to listen to. Number 2, please come and be part of our Map It Marketing Facebook group. There's a link in the show notes if you want help and support and free tips and ideas during the year. And number 3, we have our online marketing strategy course launching 24th of January. If you would like to be part of launch week and get a never to be repeated 50% off for that week deal, then come and register in the show notes. There's a little link there and you'll get an email with the offer in just a few days or a week or so time. Right, let's talk about Pinterest. If you're going to use it for your business, remember, set a plan in place first. Think about the capacity, think about how you're going to lay out the boards, think about what you need. Look, I am a jumper in person. I just jump in and do things. But it's a really good idea to just sit back and take a look. Go and look into Pinterest and look at other people's boards, see how they laid them out. Check your competitors or people in your industry to have a look at those things first. Do the groundwork first to make it easier. Once you've set it up, make sure you put time in your diary every week or fortnight or month to put those pins in place and schedule them in. And I do, like Tracey, strongly recommend using the Tailwind app. Next week, we have a Pinterest expert. We're going to double down on Pinterest. I've got her along. She is amazing. And I learned so much from her and Tracey from doing this Pinterest stuff. So she's going to talk a little bit about next week about how to really make those pins work. So if Pinterest is your thing, definitely sign in and listen to next week's episode. Until then, have a great week. Thanks for tuning in today to Map It Marketing with me, Rachel Klaver. Make sure you hit subscribe in your podcast app so you don't miss an episode. And if you want notes or information about today's podcast, go to rachelklaver.com/podcast for more information.